Hey everyone, Bob Kendall here. Just want to thank you all for watching my videos. If you do want to support the channel, go to www.kendallreport.com/wavetech. Sign up for our software. You get market grid on 165 individual stocks and indices. You also will get 16,500 buy and sell signals on our entire database. I thank you so much for supporting the channel. Those of you that already signed up, thank you so much. Welcome to the Kendall Report. Well, yesterday's action was very interesting. We started off on a reasonably positive note, and the second that Janet Yellen came out, the market flipped on a dime. Yesterday was a big promotional day for the infrastructure deal. Biden was in Detroit, and Janet Yellen, which I used to call the fairy godmother, now looks more like maybe the evil witch of the West. She's talking about how unions will make everything better. Everybody needs to be unionized, and that will help inclusion and everything with the dialogue that continues to go around in the social environment. That has now become part of the job of the Treasury, and this is just more of the propaganda to try to get more expenditures out there. And I told you a number of months ago when Yellen came in that she now has the perfect teammate. She's got the Fed, who is willing to print the money, and now she's trying to figure out how to spend it. There's not a lot of traction on this infrastructure deal. It looks like they might get to $600 billion to $1 trillion. I don't think they're going to get the $4 trillion that they're fantasizing about. So tonight's video is pre-live stream. I'll be on at 1:30 as usual. So we'll do a full live stream again. And there's a lot to cover, so I'm going to keep this fairly brief tonight just to get you set up for the open, and then I'll talk to you mid-session. If you can't make it, we always tag the video so you know what I was talking about at different times. But as we look back on yesterday, we saw the S&P down 0.9, NASDAQ down 0.6, and the Russell down 0.7. The big movers yesterday were energy down 2.6, industrials down 1.4, financials were down, I think, 1.2. So there was a lot of pressure, a lot of these things that were working briefly, just everything flipped on a dime. It's all the dialogue around the higher taxes, expenditures, expectation of inflation continues to hang around. The other big story yesterday was the Dow dropping. It still hasn't triggered some of the things that I talked about in last night's video, and I'll go through a deep dive in that in the live stream on Wednesday. But I do see a lot of pressure coming in, and things are getting very tenuous in the Dow, because if that Dow collapses, it changes the entire dialogue that I've been talking about for the last several months. Final thing I'll talk about, and I'll go through the details in a minute. Somehow, in spite of the downtick yesterday, we were able to get more traction, and the short-term database actually moved up above 43%. But I'm not sure it's that material just yet. There are still some key support levels, which I'll talk about in the technical section here in a minute, but there are definitely things that we're going to be watching very closely over the next several days, because the market could be very close to rolling over. Last week's snapback rally was definitely all about the new CDC mandates that they're putting out, but there's no momentum there. And I mentioned this in last night's video. I just don't see anything material to push the markets higher. So there's a lot of risk in the markets. So let's go ahead and take a look at the charts and see how they're set up from Wednesday. And I'll see you at the live stream at 1:30 Eastern Time. As I cover the WaveTech database, as I mentioned in the opening comments, we have moved up to 43.24% bullish. There's now 7,087 symbols long. The ratio last night, we had 673 buy signals, 141 sell signals, so about a 6-to-1 ratio again. So that did push us over that critical 42%. We're going to have to see with the weakness in the futures overnight whether the market can recover and hold some of the support levels that I'll discuss in a few minutes. But there's definitely still traction coming in, and there's a back-end rotation that's happening. I've been watching this fairly closely, and what rotated in the previous time, there's a different set of stocks, and I've talked about this phenomena before. You start to see some interesting patterns in the back end of the database rotate. And so these are a different set of stocks coming in this time than the last time in the rotation. We'll see how it plays out, but it still looks like the market's trying to find the right set of stocks or the right group that is going to lead the markets higher if that's going to happen. There's a lot of evidence starting to show up that we may see some further downside, and I'll go through that in the technical section. The first market that I'll cover tonight is Bitcoin. There's a lot of downside emerging out of this market, and I know a lot of folks are wondering about what my thoughts are on this. I'll cover this in more detail in the live stream tomorrow, but just briefly, we did get a sell signal on the logic several days ago at the 50,458 level. We're seeing some acceleration. It looks like we're going to head probably to the 200-day moving average, which is now at 35,717. If it doesn't hold there, then it's possible to go down between 33 and 30,000, and I'll cover this in detail in tomorrow's live stream. A quick look at the market grid for Bitcoin. We're trading almost down to an S2 37,928, and the extreme is 35,297, which is very close to that 200-day moving average, which is currently at the 35,717 level. So this looks like this would be an STX hit if that were to happen. As I review the S&P, we did get a sell signal. I mentioned this last week. We got a sell signal at the 4140 level on the futures. There's not a lot of traction. I mentioned that I didn't have high expectations, but we're now starting to trade back below that 40-day moving average. The last time that we traded below that was the day that we got the sell signal. So the key level in this pattern is going to be down at the 4051 level. I don't expect we're going to get there today, but we are seeing downward acceleration in PPM1. PPM 2 and 3 are basically flat. PPM 3 is actually positive. So it's not a real big rollover that's happening here, but we're getting at some critical levels. Looking at the SPX just to get everything set up for the market grid for tomorrow, there's on the cash, we're getting yet another cycle, and it's possible that this is going to be a top cycle here, and you'll see this little cyan dot here. This is the warning before a cycle hits. So if we look at the market grid for today, S2 is 4106, and then S3 4095, STX 4085. That gets down very close to some of the numbers that was the key support number that I talked about last week was 4086. It appears that we're going to retest some of these critical levels. Quick look at the market grid for today on SPX. The expectation will be R1, S2. We should hold the 4106 level. You can see the other numbers, 4095, 4085 on S3 and STX. Next market is NASDAQ. The NASDAQ continues to stay just below the 10-period moving average. The last several days we've spiked above it, but we've not been able to close above that average. The last time we closed above that average was back on 429. We continue to drift lower. In fact, PPM1 is at a minus 0.26, PPM2 minus 0.22, basically downtrend mode. And this is likely to continue to be a very strong resistance number around the 13,315. Yesterday, we did have some pretty good strength coming into the open. And as I mentioned earlier, Janet Yellen pretty much turned that around. Market sentiment turned, algorithms picked up on this stuff, and we finished down on the session. So a little bit of follow through overnight. Just looking at the market grid and looking at the configuration on the PPMs, still not a major acceleration type pattern. So we could set up a right shoulder here, maybe retest the lows that we had last week down at the 12,915 level. But I'll go into a deep dive tomorrow. So just as we look at the market grid for today, Here's the expectations are for an R1 S2. We've already seen the S1 hit, so look for further lows down around the 13,066. Final market that I'll cover is the gold, and gold continues to remain above its 200-day moving average, 1858. Last trade, 1868, and we're seeing it hover around here. PPM1 is still up at a 0.46. It's fading just a little bit. PPM2, 0.23, positive 0.19. So we're basically in a very strong trend mode. I don't see us getting below the S1 level today. We've already been down to 1864, S1, 1862. If it did trade through that, there's solid support down 1856 S2. So my expectations would be for an R2, maybe an S1 level. If we do get a little more, if we get a little weakness, we're actually trading flat on the session. This will complete the video for tonight. Thank you so much. We'll see you at the live stream at 1:30 Eastern Time on Wednesday. Thanks for watching. Hey folks, if you enjoyed this content, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button and the notification bell so you'll know when I do these videos.